Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and I think this is the first castle tour that I've done in like 9 months, which is way too long because I've changed most of the village since then. If you look back at the previous one, you'll notice there are a whole lot more buildings than there were before, and buildings have changed colors or been switched around. There's actually one set of buildings that I inverted the colors on, and now I wish to invert them back. It's a mess. But let's see what all has changed. The biggest change is that I have finished raising the base level of the entire village. This level of Duplo was not there before. I had started it over here with the chapel so that I could have crypts underneath, and I showed that previously, but we'll go ahead and show it again. So underneath there is this crypt, and you can see the priest there is battling some kind of monster from beyond, tentacles coming out from one of the alcoves. There is a secret passageway that leads into this back room, which will be, a treasure room or some sort of a mausoleum or something along those lines, a crypt, who knows. Probably some nasty undead in there, but other than that, that's pretty much all that there is to see here. I have made one addition to the chapel that wasn't there before. I guess I made a couple additions, really. If we take the roof off, there is an organ, which I think is actually really cool. Big pipe organ up there in this balcony area, and there is a ladder that leads up to the balcony. I think the whole balcony comes out. And then there are now pews, and there is behind the altar there's a secret room, which is neat. Probably some sort of a sword back there. I think that's pretty much all the new stuff here. I really like how the organ came out. Found the idea for that online. Let's see. Next new building is this one, and this is one of my favorite buildings, and I'm really looking forward to doing the interior detail on this one. This is the Inventor's Workshop. I decided I wanted some kind of a crazy, mad scientist, Da Vinci type character is really what I was going for. And so naturally, when trying to design Da Vinci's workshop, I turned to my younger brother, who we're relatively convinced is either the reincarnation of Da Vinci, or actually is Da Vinci, he just hasn't invented his time machine yet. And I asked him to help me design this building, and so he designed it off of a palace that Da Vinci designed in Florence, I believe for the Medici. It might have been for the Machiavellians, I'm not sure which, could have been both. Anyway, he designed basically the bottom floor, and then kind of, gave me that idea to have the incrementally smaller design based on the spiral that Da Vinci was such a huge fan of, and he also loved domes, so I made a domed roof there. It's got a little balcony. It's one of the tallest buildings in the village, and I'm actually planning to lower it by 1 brick, just so it's not quite so huge. I haven't quite finished the tower yet. There will be a functioning spiral staircase. I figured out how to make a spiral staircase that's only 4x4. The previous one in the main castle, they're all 6x6. So figuring out how to reduce that was an important step. Actually, I think those ones might be... Well, some of them are 5x5, some of them are 6x6. Anyway, this one I managed to get it down to 4x4, so I'll need to rebuild the whole tower so it's actually hollow, because it currently has the plates that, of course, narrow it too much, but I will be able to fix that. There is no detail in the upstairs yet, but there will eventually be a very small bed, and then probably alchemy stuff up here, as well as his library. Will mostly be up here, so there'll be just a small bed in the corner, and then the rest of it will be taken up with books and scrolls and pens and alchemy stuff and potions and who knows what else. That will be a really neat one. And then the downstairs will be the inventing workshop. Currently he's sculpting. A fan gave me a Back to the Future Lego set that had Doc Brown, and so I decided to make Doc Brown the mad scientist, because he had that mad scientist look. Just put him in an apron and ran with it. He's currently carving, sculpting. There is a small miniature version of the statue, and then of course the larger one. There will eventually be all sorts of mechanisms and whatnot. This will have a water wheel. No idea what it will be powering, but there'll be a flying machine hanging in the corner and all sorts of other machine-looking stuff, and it's going to be a lot of fun to design the downstairs of this one. Directly next door, and I felt very fitting, is the Alchemist. Previously, the Alchemist was in that blue-roofed building over there, but the downstairs were exactly the same size, and I decided I wanted the Alchemist next to the Inventor rather than over in the market area. So I just rearranged the downstairs, just moved all the downstairs into this one, and all of the magic items are now over in that one, because that felt more like something that you'd have in the market, would be all the magic items. Next door is still the inn with the rooms upstairs and the tavern downstairs. This is the one that used to be where that black-roofed building is, and those are the two that I inverted the colors. The one next to it is the Armorer, and it used to have a blue roof and white walls, and this one had the red roof and red walls. And because it was over there, I didn't want the two blue roof buildings across from each other, so I switched them, and then that just didn't work out, because I couldn't just switch them, because then I would have a red-roofed building across the street from this red-roofed building, and it was a mess. I like to have the variety. I don't like having two buildings that are the same roof and wall color next to each other. So I inverted them, and really don't like how that came out. I like kind of how this building turned out, but I really didn't like how that one turned out, and so I may now swap them back and put the red wall, red roof with this design. We'll see what happens. Anyway, this is the Healer's Workshop, as you can see by the little red cross, and then inside is herbs and all of that. I don't know if I showed that one previously. I don't think there's any upstairs details, but there's lots of downstairs. There's a bed and workbench and potions and herbs and stuff, and then there's a garden out the back. That's all of the stuff she needs to make her potions and her healing salves and all of that. And yeah, that one came out pretty nice. We'll see where I go with that, however. If I do switch them around, the color scheme will still be the same, but it'll be that style of building, because this one was based on an actual kit. And I liked having that distinct kit look that you could recognize and go, oh, hey, yeah, I had that set. But I'd need to swap them around, which wouldn't be too difficult. I have made these stables. They were there before, but I have made them smaller and rotated the building, kind of. So there used to be three stalls and then a tack room, and now there's only the two stalls. And that was because I wanted to make room for another building next to it, because I was running out of room everywhere else, and that building was taking up way too much space. There is still a corral outside for the horses. I do still need to work out where the staircase... There used to be a staircase that led up to the upstairs, and there isn't one now, so I either need to figure out how to put a staircase inside the building or figure out how to put a staircase outside the building. This one is one of these sets that I got from my mother for Christmas. I had to do some very massive redesign, because those ones are designed to swing open on a hinge, and I needed it to be able to lift up by floors, and so I had to tear the whole building down and rebuild it using that style, but kept the aesthetic as much as I could, because it was such a pretty building. And again, I wanted to keep that building where somebody could look at it and say, oh yeah, that's based off this set. I actually wanted that specifically. Kind of like how the castle is very reminiscent of the old King's Castle. I wanted as many buildings in the village to be recognizable as possible, but still to fit in with the general look and feel that I was going for, that not quite hyper-realistic, but fancier. And it was definitely, these ones were much fancier than anything that I previously had in my village, and as a result, I've actually gone through and redesigned many of the buildings in my village, just adding a little bit more detail, a little bit more depth, adding gables or little windows that are further out, like you can see here, and little details just to add a little bit more spice. Not too much, because like I said, I don't want the hyper-realistic look. And this is the Armorer, and I really like how his shop came out. Let's see if we can get the roof off. Probably not. There we go. If you look down in there, there's all sorts of armor all over the walls, suits of armor in the corners. There's raw materials back under the stairs and his workbench. And then on the windows, there are helmets on display. And I wanted him right next to the joust, obviously, because you know, to show off his wares to the jousters that are there, and hopefully make a little bit of business. So yeah, like how that one turned out. We then have the Magic Item Workshop, like I said, and it now has a fair amount of detail. Once again, I can get the building apart. Yeah, and so all sorts of magic items on racks and shelves and barrels and all sorts of weird stuff. Really like how that one came out. Oh dear, I've broken a staircase. One building that went a major facelift was the Blacksmith Shop. Previously, the Blacksmith Shop was based off of the one from the set that I got from the gnome, but I just built it using the parts I had, and I didn't have all of the parts. And so I done it as best I could. But it still had brown pillars instead of black, and then tan walls. But I ended up actually getting that set, and I didn't want to have two of them that looked so similar because that was just a little too much. So I ended up taking the set that I got from the gnome and turning it into this one, which is black and tan, and it is in fact my grocer. So downstairs on it, there's all the foodstuffs, all of the stuff that would come from the farms, the butcher. He's the butcher, he's the baker, all of that. Well, actually, he's not. The baker's next door. I take that back. Yeah, that's the baker. But he's got all of the fruit, vegetables, meats, all of that sort of thing in there. And I did that because I wanted to free up what was currently the market area, and that was selling all of that, and have it be a foreign bazaar, because I got so many Ninjago sets and the Prince of Persia sets, and I really wanted to integrate them in, and so I decided to have foreign caravans, an Asian one and a Middle Eastern one. And so that is what is going to end up replacing these in the fairly near future. I haven't gotten to that yet. I'm going to have to look up ideas on how to make more accurate-looking tents for them, or some kind of something. And I may have to actually move the whole joust a little bit further away just to give me a little bit extra room for that. But as a result, because I used the tan for that one, the blacksmith now ended up becoming yellow. I don't know if you can actually see that. But there's a long tradition of yellow thatch in LEGO. The earliest castles had yellow thatch things as well as the red thatch. And then the newest building that I haven't even quite finished building is this one, which is going to be the woodworker. The carpenter, the cooper, the wheelwright, all of that are all going to be worked into here, all the things that are wood-based. He is actually finally getting a workshop, and that is where I took what was previously the yellow and brown, or the brown and tan from the blacksmith shop, and moved it over to here, because he's the woodworker. You'd think he'd have a lot more wood, so he's got all the brown windows and brown pillars, and it's a lot of fancy woodwork based on some other sets. Absolutely love how that one ended up coming out. As you can see, it looks like it's currently being built, and that is because I did not have enough roof tiles left to actually put a roof on this thing. So I ordered them online, and in the meantime decided to make this little action scene of, looks like the guys are in fact in the process of building the roof. So we got the wagon full of tiles, and people moving beams up, and then a winch lifting a barrel full of tiles, and then guys up here working on the tiles. I do now have the roof, the proper roof that will go on it, but I really wanted to show off this little action scene just because it's really, really cool. And I will probably keep these parts so that I can recreate that action scene later. There is still a little bit of work that needs to be done. The sawmill, they will end up sharing a staircase and a landing between the two buildings. Obviously, the sawmill and the woodworker would be working very close together. For those of you that are paying really close attention, the farm used to be on this side and the carpenter was on this side, and I ended up, as you can see, switching them. And that was because I ended up with 3 water wheels all in a row on this section of the creek and none over there at the time. And I decided that was just a little too congested. I didn't like that. There's that section of landing. And so I decided to move the carpenter, or the sawmill over here to move one of the water wheels, and then there'll be a water wheel on the inventor shop. So there'll be 2 over here and 2 over there, and that's just much better balanced, I believe. Really like how the farm came out. I did get my goats from a fan in Mexico. There was an amiable trade, and I got to meet one of their club members at Jared's Epic Nerf battle, so that was pretty cool. This barn will be undergoing some modification. I built it when I first moved here and was a little bit low on parts. And I have a surplus of parts now, so I want to take it apart and just take a look at the design and see if I can't make it a little bit stouter. Make it so that the roof comes off and the top floor comes off so I can do stuff on the inside. You know, this peasant here tilling the ground, which is lovely. Lots of chickens. Let's see, what other major changes took place? The Gypsies, the poor Gypsies that used to be right here. Urban sprawl being what it is, I think I've added 3 or 4, maybe even 5 buildings since the last time. And as a result, I had to evict my Gypsy characters, which is typical of, you know, the mistreatment that they've had throughout all of history. And so they are now out here in the forest behind the castle near the outlaws' hideout here and the forestmen's hideout there. So they've been outcast from society, which is, you know, as I said, very typical of the mistreatment that they've gotten throughout their lives. But I really kind of like just having them in the woods. I think that's a neat place. Plus, there was nothing else there. They're hanging out with the moose. I don't think I've really done anything in the actual castle itself since then. I've been working almost exclusively on the village. There will be some stuff in the future. I picked up a lot of peasant characters because some of them came with the set the gnome got me, and I actually already had most of those figures already. Plus, I never had a shortage of peasants, really, as a result of... I've been using Jedi to create peasants forever because they're, you know, similar in concept. But I decided I needed more royalty, more fancy characters, so I went on eBay and I bought a whole bunch of all the different kings and queens that they've released over the years, and so I'll be able to have a proper fancy court up in the king's throne room eventually, but that is a little bit further down the line. I think that pretty much covers everything worth covering, all of the major changes. There's probably some interior stuff I haven't shown you that I will in the next one, but I wanted to get this one done before I changed everything again, and there was no documentation of it because I'm absolutely horrific at doing before and after photos. So there you have it. I hope this is interesting to you guys. I find it very interesting, and I like to have some kind of a record of all the changes I made. So let me know if you guys have any suggestions on buildings I could add. Someday this will be at least 2 feet longer, and I'll have a whole nother row of buildings. And I might even someday try to make it a little bit wider and maybe expand the whole castle. But that's a long way down the road before, you know, I'd have to have my own place. So let me know what you guys think. Suggestions, complaints, ideas, corrections. Go ahead and put that kind of stuff in the comments because I love reading the comments. And I will take it into account. Thank you guys for watching.